The sky was full of smoke and fire. Loud explosions shook the ground. The final battle had ended, and silence came like death. Bodies lay everywhere, some human, some alien. The smell of blood, ash, and burning metal filled the air. And in the middle of it all, a single alien woman moved. Barely her body was broken. Her legs no longer worked. Her silver armor was crushed, and sparks came from her backplate. She dragged herself forward with only her arms, each movement slow and painful. Her name was Kirel, a warrior of the feared Zarnai Empire, once proud, once strong. Now just another dying soldier on a forgotten battlefield. She had fought bravely, leading her squad through enemy lines, but a blast had hit her from behind. The shock broke her spine. Her team tried to lift her once, but then the orders came. Retreat immediately. One by one, they ran. One by one, they left her. Even her commander whispered, "Forgive me." Before turning away, now Kirel was alone. Her breathing was shallow, her fingers numb. But she refused to close her eyes. She didn't want to die sleeping. Above, the evacuation ships roared through the clouds. Her people were escaping. No one would return for her. She was paralyzed, useless in the eyes of her empire. A warrior who can't walk is already dead. A shadow passed over her. She blinked slowly, thinking it was death. But then boots, human boots. Kirel growled weakly and reached for a broken dagger near her hand, but her arm trembled and failed. The figure walked closer, a human soldier, covered in dirt and blood, one eye bruised. Limping from a leg injury, he crouched beside her. Frowning, "You're Zarnai," he said, voice tired. She didn't answer. He looked around, then back at her. "Why are you still here?" he asked. She laughed softly, bitterly. "They left me." He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He just looked at her, long and hard. Finally he spoke. "You're hurt bad." She coughed. "You think?" He gave a weak smile. "Yeah." Then he added, "I'm Carter. You?" She hesitated. "Kirel." "All right, Kirel," he said, standing up. "I'm not leaving you here." She blinked, confused. "What?" He bent down and slid his arms under her. She gasped. "Stop." "What are you doing?" "Carrying you," he said, as if it was obvious. "You'll slow me down," she said sharply. He shrugged. "Then I'll go slower." "But I'm your enemy." She hissed. He looked down at her. "Not right now." "You're not," he said softly. "Right now you're just someone who needs help." As he lifted her, she groaned in pain. Her body felt heavy and broken, but he didn't flinch. Behind them, the fires still burned. Laser blasts echoed in the far distance. He began to walk, one step at a time. His own leg injury made each step hard, but he didn't stop. "Why?" she asked again. "Why help me?" He breathed heavily. "Because if I was on the ground like you, I'd want someone to pick me up too." Kirel said nothing after that. She was too weak, but her heart, once filled with pride and hate, felt something new, a strange warmth. The wind howled through the ruins. Dust and ash floated like ghosts, and still, Carter walked, one slow step at a time. Kirel hung weakly in his arms. Her body burned with pain. Her breathing was shallow, but her mind, it was racing. No one had ever carried her before, not even during training. Zarnai warriors were taught to crawl, to bleed, to die alone. Yet here she was, in the arms of a human enemy. They moved through the shattered valley, once a base, now a graveyard. Wrecked tanks, smoking debris, and fallen towers surrounded them. Carter didn't speak, but he gritted his teeth with every step. Kirel finally asked, "Where are you going?" "Safe zone," he replied, voice flat. 10 clicks west. "Might still be a med tent." She coughed. "You're hurt too." He smirked. "Yeah, but I can still walk." She looked up at his bruised face. There was blood on his temple. Sweat ran down his neck, but his eyes were calm, tired, but calm. "You could have left me," she muttered. "I know," he said quietly. "Then why didn't you?" He paused, took a deep breath and whispered, "Because leaving you behind would make me like them." That sentence hit her harder than the explosion had. Like them, her own squad, her own empire. The ones who left her to die for a moment. She hated them, then. She hated herself. They reached a slope covered in sharp rocks and burned branches. Carter slipped, fell to his knee, but didn't drop her. His arms trembled. Still. He stood again. Kirel clenched her jaw. "Put me down," she said firmly. "No, you'll die carrying me. Maybe," he said. "But I won't let you die alone." Silence followed. And in that silence, a strange thing happened. She reached up with her hand, weak and shaking, and wiped a streak of dirt from his cheek. It wasn't much, but it was the first time Azar-Nai had ever touched a human with care. Carter blinked, surprised, but he didn't say anything. They kept moving. They passed a wrecked alien dropship. The smell of burned fuel still lingered. Suddenly a sound, something moved in the shadows. Carter froze. He slowly placed Kirel down behind some rubble. "Stay quiet," he whispered, pulling out his rifle. A group of scavengers armed and hungry moved into view. Not soldiers, just survivors looking for anything to steal. They didn't care who lived or died. One of them saw Kirel's armor pieces. "Zarnai tech," he said, eyes wide. "Worth a lot," before they could move closer. Carter stepped out, weapon raised. "Not yours," he growled. The scavengers laughed. "1 man against 4? Carter didn't back down, but his hands trembled. He was exhausted, bleeding, almost at his limit. Then, a strange sound came from behind him, a warning hiss. Kirel, still lying against the rubble, had managed to grab a small energy blade. From the ground, her hand was shaking, but her eyes were fire again. The scavengers paused, 2 broken warriors. But something about them, together, was terrifying. The scavengers backed away slowly. Carter didn't lower his rifle until they vanished. Then he turned, stunned. "You scared them off," he said, surprised. She smirked faintly. "I was trained to kill, not die lying down." He laughed softly, the first real laugh in days. Then he picked her up again. "We're gonna make it," he said. And for the first time since her injury, Kirel believed him. Night fell like a black curtain over the battlefield. No moon, no stars, just endless dark. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air, and every shadow felt like it could breathe. Carter found a broken transport truck half buried in the dirt. It was rusted and covered in ash, but it had enough space inside to hide. He gently laid Kirel down inside, her back against cold metal. She winced but didn't complain. Her armor was cracked, and her blood had dried into her clothes. Carter checked outside once more, then crawled in beside her. He sealed the broken door with debris and wrapped them both in an emergency heat sheet. The wind howled through the cracks, but inside the wreckage it was quiet, too quiet. Kirel stared at the dark ceiling, her voice soft. "This is the first night I've ever felt small." Carter didn't answer at first. Then he said, "I've felt that way for years." She turned her head slightly. "How do humans survive like this?" "With luck," he smiled, "and fire. But mostly luck." They sat in silence again. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was waiting. Waiting for death, or rescue, or betrayal. Suddenly, a sharp noise outside, footsteps crunching the gravel. Carter froze, slowly pulled out his pulse gun. Kirel's breath stopped, even broken. Her instinct sharpened in an instant. They heard a whisper, in an alien tongue. "Scavengers. Maybe soldiers. Maybe worse." Whoever they were close. Carter covered Kirel's mouth gently. Her eyes widened, but she nodded. The footsteps came closer. A flashlight beam passed across the truck's shattered window. Then nothing. The beam vanished, and the sounds drifted away into the dark. Carter let out a slow breath. They were safe for now. After a long silence, Kirel whispered, "You didn't have to hide me." "I did," he replied. "They'd kill you. Or sell me for parts," she said coldly. Carter's eyes narrowed. "Not while I'm breathing." She stared at him for a moment. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her commander, not her own squad. Not even her bloodkin. She asked, "Do all humans protect their enemies?" He shrugged. You're not my enemy right now. You're my mission. She raised an eyebrow. Who gave you that mission? He looked down at the dirt floor, then muttered, I did. That answer made something shift in her chest. An emotion she didn't recognize, warm but painful. Not loyalty, not honor. Something else. She looked at his hands, rough, bruised, and trembling from exhaustion. Then, for the first time, she reached forward and placed her hand over his, a small gesture. But it carried the weight of 1,000 battles. You could have left me like the others, she whispered. But I didn't, he replied, eyes meeting hers. Why? He didn't smile, didn't move. He just said, because I've been left behind too. Kirell's throat tightened. She understood now. They were not just survivors. They were mirrors, broken by war, pieced back together by choice. Outside, the world stayed dark. But inside the ruined truck, something small but unbreakable began to glow. Not light, not heat, but hope. Asterisk at first light. The sky was still gray. The sun had not broken through the clouds. But the silence of night was fading, and so was the numbness in Kirell's heart. She opened her eyes slowly. Carter was already awake, sitting at the truck's open door, rifle in hand, scanning the wasteland. His face looked older today, or maybe it was just the dirt and pain. But still, he sat like a sentinel, worn down, but not broken. Kirell shifted, trying to sit up. Pain shot through her back. She winced, but didn't cry out. He heard it anyway. You okay? He asked without looking. Still alive, she muttered. Somehow, she paused. Then added, because of you. He finally turned to her, smiled faintly. You're not a burden. If that's what you're thinking, I was trained to be a weapon, she whispered. Now I can't even lift a knife. Carter didn't answer. Instead, he reached behind him, pulled out a compact medkit. I found this in a dead unit's bag last night, he said. I can try to treat the swelling in your spine. It might help. Or hurt like hell. She stared at him. No one in my army would waste supplies on a cripple. He looked at her seriously. Well, good thing I'm not your army. He began carefully injecting small doses near her lower back. Her whole body tensed, sharp pain. Then, relief, small but real. After a few minutes, her legs still didn't move. But the burning pain was duller now. She could breathe without shaking. You risked your life for this, she said, voice trembling. Carter leaned back, stretching his stiff neck. I told you, he said simply. I made you my mission. Kirell's eyes narrowed slightly. But why? Why me? What makes you care? Carter didn't respond right away. He looked at the rising gray horizon and said softly, because maybe if I save someone, then all the death I've seen wasn't for nothing. Silence. Then, footsteps. Carter's instincts flared. He spun and raised his rifle, but it was too late. A flash of light, a shockwave. Carter was thrown back against the wall of the truck. He groaned, dazed. Smoke filled the wreck again. Scavengers, armed, not here to steal, here to hunt. One of them kicked Carter's gun away. Another grabbed his collar and yanked him up. Nice catch, the scavenger laughed. A wounded alien and her pet human. Kirell watched helplessly, still too weak to move, but her mind. Something inside her snapped. She remembered battle drills. She remembered rage. She remembered who she was. A warrior. Not cargo, not trash, not prey. Her hand clenched around a small metal pipe in the wreckage. She growled deep, primal, and hurled it with all her strength. The pipe hit the leader in the face. Blood spurted. He staggered back, and Carter used that split second to slam his elbow into the second attacker's throat. The fight exploded. Gunshots, grunts, fists, metal slamming metal. Kirell, breathless, tried to pull herself out of the truck. Her legs were useless, but her arms were still strong. She crawled toward the fallen scavenger, snatched up his sidearm and fired. A perfect shot, straight to the knee of the last enemy. Screaming, the man dropped, and Carter finished the rest. Panting hard, he looked down at the smoking blaster in Kirell's hand, eyes wide. You shot Him, she smirked through bloody lips. I told you I may be broken, but I'm still a warrior. Then, her voice changed, softer, more serious. I didn't fight for the Empire this time, she said. I fought for you. Carter stared at her speechless, and in her eyes, where pain had lived for days, there was now something else. Fire. The wind had changed, not in direction, but in feeling. It no longer carried only smoke and blood. Now it whispered something colder. Something older. Carter adjusted the makeshift sling on his back. Kirel was strapped securely behind him, her arms locked around his shoulders. She wasn't light, but he didn't care anymore. Every step hurt. His right boot was torn, his ribs ached from the earlier blast, but he kept walking. West, to where the safe zone was supposed to be. Hours passed, maybe days' time had become. Soft, the sky never fully cleared, the air was thin, and the ground beneath their feet turned from dirt to black glass. Kirel lifted her head slowly. This land, she whispered, it was bombed with plasma. Centuries ago. Carter looked down. Scorched craters, melted bones. Looks like no one ever left. He muttered. No one survived, she corrected. They say this place is cursed. He chuckled weakly. Great. Now you tell me, but... She wasn't joking. Kirel's voice turned low. There were experiments here. Long before humans came to this sector. What kind of experiments? The kind that scream. Even after death. As if on cue, the wind howled through. A cracked ravine, and Carter paused. He thought he heard whispers, or maybe it was just his mind playing tricks. Kirel gripped his chest suddenly. Stop, she said. There's movement. He turned slowly. Nothing. Just broken towers half swallowed by ash. Until a flicker. Something crawling. Upright in the distance, tall, thin, wrapped in cloth and static. Carter narrowed his eyes. Not scavengers, he whispered. Not alive. Kirel added, her voice trembling. They're echoes. Echoes of what? Pain, she said simply. The figures didn't attack. They watched, then vanished behind heat waves and smoke. Gone. Carter picked up his pace. Even Kirel didn't argue. Neither of them wanted to learn what the echoes did to the living. Hours later, they found an old bunker hidden under a crushed hill. The door was half open. Carter forced it wider and carried Kirel inside. It was dark, but dry, and for the first time in days silent. He laid her down gently on a rusted cot. Her fingers were cold, but her breathing was calm. Carter collapsed. Beside her, they didn't talk for a while. Just listened to the bunker walls hum softly. Then Kirel broke the silence. Why do you keep going? Carter didn't answer, so she asked again. Everyone else would have left me. Why didn't you? He looked up at the flickering light above them and said, Because you didn't give up either. She stared at him. You carried me. He shook his head. No, you kept me moving. Something warm passed between them. A look, a shared breath. A moment no longer defined by war, and then, a beeping sound echoed in the room, soft but real, a signal. Carter jumped up and ran to the wall panel. Kirel's eyes widened. Is it a transmitter? He pressed a few buttons with shaking fingers. The screen blinked to life, signal detected. Human emergency channel. Carter stared. Then laughed, not loud, but real. Kirel's eyes shimmered. Someone's still out there. She whispered, We're not alone. For the first time since the battlefield, they had a destination, no longer a walk to nowhere. Now it was a walk to hope. Asterisk. The screen glowed like a weak heartbeat in the dark, flickering. Static lines crawled across it, but the words were clear. Human emergency beacon detected, channel active. Carter stared in disbelief. His fingers trembled as he adjusted the old knobs and tuning crystals. Come on, he muttered. Don't die on me now. Kirel sat up with effort. Even though her legs were still dead weight, her mind was sharp. That's your people's frequency, she whispered. From before the ceasefire. Carter nodded slowly. It's not just a signal, he said. It's a call. Someone's still alive out there. Then the speaker cracked, and a voice, garbled but real, came through. If any unit receives this, safe corridor open near Sector Echo 9. Repeat, safe corridor. Kirill's eyes widened. Echo 9? That's, Carter finished her sentence. That's near the old Zarnai fortress. The one destroyed 5 years ago. They exchanged a look. Hope met hesitation. What if it's a trap? She asked. It might be, he said, or it might be our way out. Carter stood and began packing their things, what little they had. Bandages, water packs, the last of the nutrient bars. He carefully wrapped Kirill in a survival coat before lifting her again. She winced but didn't complain. There was no time left for pain. They left the bunker behind. The sky outside had turned purple-gray. Ash clouds swirled above them like storm spirits. Hours passed, the terrain became more dangerous, glass-like rocks, sudden drop-offs, glowing fungus that hissed when touched, the kind of ground only cursed places knew how to grow. Then, suddenly, a strange sound ahead, not voices, not machines, but music. A soft humming tune, almost human, echoing across the ruins. Carter slowed his steps. That's not in the message, he said softly. No, Kirill replied, her voice low. That's something else. They followed the sound carefully. It led them through twisted towers and shattered statues, ancient war memorials of both human and alien dead. Finally, they reached it. A broken command post. Its roof collapsed. Inside was a strange sight. Girl, barely grown alien, blue-skinned with glowing markings, sitting beside a damaged beacon tower. She was the source of the music. She was humming to a small glowing cube like a lullaby. She looked up the moment she sensed them, her eyes completely silver-locked onto Carter's, and then she smiled, not with fear, not with surprise. Recognition. I was waiting for you, she said softly. Carter froze. Me? She nodded. You're the one the cube called. You carry death. But you protect life. That's rare. Kirill whispered in Carter's ear. She's not normal. She's a signal-bonded rare creatures who live inside old technology. Living beacons? He asked. Living memory, she corrected. The girl walked slowly toward them and reached for Kirill's forehead. Your spine is broken, she said gently, but your fire is not. She placed her palm on Kirill's chest. Light flared warm, gold ancient. Kirill gasped as heat flooded her body. Her legs twitched, her toes moved, tears filled her eyes. I can feel again. Carter stepped forward, stunned. What? Are you? The girl tilted her head. I'm what's left when war forgets to end. And I'm here to finish what others left undone. Suddenly, the beacon behind her sparked. Its signal surged, glowing bright for the first time in years. Coordinates appeared on the screen. A map. A corridor. A true exit. Take her there, the girl said to Carter. She's more than what she was. And so are you. Before either of them could respond, the girl and the beacon vanished. Not exploded, not walked away. Just gone, like a dream at sunrise. Carter looked down at Kirill. She looked up at him with trembling lips and smiled. I think we're finally going home. The path lit up under their feet, not with light, but with memory. Each step echoed with the voices of the fallen, the ones who didn't return, and the ones who were never remembered. Carter and Kirill walked together now, no longer carrier and burden, but side by side. Her legs trembled but moved. Like a newborn deer learning to stand on a war-torn world, they followed the coordinates from the vanished girl, through jagged valleys and fields of dust, past machines too rusted to move and statues too stubborn to fall. As they approached the final ridge, they saw it, a massive dome glowing with soft white light, half buried in ash, still alive, still waiting. The Echo 9 safe zone. The last untouched outpost of the old alliance, a myth. Now real. Kirill's breath caught in her throat. This place was destroyed, she whispered. Carter nodded slowly. That's what they told us. Then why is it still standing? Maybe, he said softly, because some places wait for the right people to return. As they stepped through the outer gate, the sensors buzzed to life. Lights flickered on like an ancient heart beating again. Doors hissed open, and a smooth, calm voice spoke from the wall. "Welcome back." "Soldier, welcome home." Carter froze. That voice, it belonged to his old ship, I long thought lost. His jaw tightened as memory surged back. His squad, his mission, his failure. Kirel looked at him. "This place knows you." He nodded. "And maybe it knows you too." The AI scanned her silently, then announced, "One Zarnay signature detected. No threat. Companion status recognized. Medical override granted." Doors opened to a glowing med bay. Machines hummed as lights danced around Kirel's body. She stepped inside without fear. This time no one forced her. This time she chose to walk. Hours passed. Carter sat alone in the observation room, staring out at the dead world beyond the dome. His eyes were tired, but his soul lighter. Then the door opened. Kirel stood there, taller, stronger, wrapped in a clean uniform, her armor repaired, her hair tied back, and her eyes still violet, but no longer hollow. He stood, speechless. She smiled and said quietly, "I'm whole again, thanks to you." He shook his head. "No, you did this. You fought back. You didn't give up." They walked into the sunlight filtering through the transparent roof. For the first time, it felt warm, not because of the sun, but because of the company. Kirel looked up. "What now?" Carter looked ahead at the console, blinking softly. "Now? We send a message." He activated the transmitter and spoke slowly, clearly. "This is Carter James, last confirmed survivor of Unit 12. Accompanied by a Zarnai warrior. We found peace here. If you're hearing this, you're not alone. There's still light out here." They stood side by side, human and alien, not enemies, not soldiers. Just two lives stitched together by war and rewritten by kindness. Far above them, the stars began to blink again, not as weapons, but as watchers, witnesses to a story the galaxy almost forgot. The warrior they left behind was the one who returned with the human who never gave up, and together they began again.